Hi there, welcome to the Rebecca Zahau case, focusing in on a very interesting new theory which I have created, which I want to share with you. And it's around the theme of the voicemail which Rebecca got from her boyfriend Jonah, who was at the hospital at the time, and the way she responded to it upon hearing it the first time. Did it directly lead to her death? Was there any actions in between by Rebecca which could link on to Adam Shacknai? Well, join me today as I give you that story and perspective. This case arguably is extremely deep considering the low number of people involved, such as a person of interest or someone that was physically on site or near to the property at the time. But as I've spent my own time researching the case and looking at what was found from Rebecca's point of view, her possessions, the house, and elsewhere externally, 1 minute there's an overwhelming feeling of evidence supporting that it might be on her and there is no foul play. But then when you look at the other areas, grey areas, mysteries, it kind of reinforces that there is a lot more to it, and it's not likely that she could have done that all to herself, because it's not just the death, it's the implications, the restrictions, the limitations to movement, the material that was around her and where it was located. It all seems very far-fetched for it to be done self-inflicted. So how does the voicemail transform the play of things from the morning leading up to her death? Well, what we need to do is get a backstory behind how it started, what happened, and then the reactions, because if there's a certain finding which shows she reacted badly to it, then that could be quite telling. If she appeared quite calm, then it would seem like there was no reason for her to do anything drastic. Psychologically, things can change, especially if news comes about, good news or bad news, but then also the reactions from people around can impact the field of play and the safety factor. So there's a handful of stuff we need to get through today. I'm going to be doing a map analysis for the first time ever as well, just an aerial view shot of the property. Granted, it will be the modern house and not from the past, because you can't go back in time on aerial, you can only go back in time on street view. And the areas that I want to point out, it won't allow me, but we'll just roll with it for now. Just want to say welcome to those that are watching this live premiere. Share your thoughts, comments, questions, and even your live reactions, all welcome in the live chat box on the right side of the screen there. And at any point or time, if you've got any follow-up questions, answers, theories, whether you agree or not with today, what we're talking about, be sure to drop a comment down below. That'll help spreading awareness, and I'll try and respond back when I can. And if you are interested in additional videos, whether that be to do with the Rebecca Zahau case, if you have missed any of my recent videos on Rebecca, don't worry. It's all available to catch up on. The full playlist is just up there, top right, where the I symbol is. And if you click on it, you get a drop-down menu box, playlist, and some loose videos attached. So the roadmap for today, backstory of the voicemail, where it came from, the timing of it, her reaction to it, and then the endless possibilities from there. So feel free to sit back, relax, listen in, and let's begin this. Spreckles Mansion, the place where Rebecca was last at and where she was found at dead round the back, the courtyard. On the day though, earlier on, the voicemail, July 13th, 2011 at 12:50 a.m. Also 10 minutes before 1 in the morning, the call received. This was a voice message, likely because Rebecca was probably, was she asleep? She may have been woken up by it. Jonah, the boyfriend who was at the hospital, had called to give an update on his son's Max's grave condition. And I believe it came along across of brain damage, not looking good, likely not going to get any better, only the worse. and a mention of organ donation too. At 12:50 in the morning, past midnight, and around that time is when Rebecca listened to it. Rebecca's phone records show she dialed into her voicemail and listened to the message for approximately 2 minutes. 12:52 a.m, the deletion. So, for the call to be received at 12:50, for Rebecca to listen to it almost immediately shows there was a level of hesitancy, first of all, as in picking up the call, because it seems like to leave a voice message, an initial call was made. Rebecca at 00:50 in her bedroom, for example, is she struggling to sleep? Is there a lot on her mind at that time with knowing what happened to Max days before, the accident at the mansion, falling over the banister, hitting the ground floor, trying to perform the CPR to keep him alive, bring him back, and it seemed successful at the time, being taken to hospital. Rebecca feeling not too responsible for it because she was doing other stuff at the time and Max was 6 years of age, so didn't need minding at all moments of the day. But then when you hear your good work has been for nothing and the condition has worsened or got worse, it does make you think, it has a bit of a negative impact maybe on Rebecca, her mood, taken back by it. And you've got to think of the psychological aspect. When you've got Rebecca in the position that she's in, she may not feel responsible fully at the time, but it will still be on her mind with what's going on. When she's in bed at night, whilst the boyfriend Jonah is not there, it will serve as a visual and a sensory reminder that the reason why her boyfriend's not there, cuddled up under the sheets, is because he's at the hospital because of Max. It's like a trigger memory for Rebecca, even though it's not her fault. It just puts her back into that place as to why things are the way they are in that moment, why maybe certain routines have changed and been unearthed and turned upside down because of this unfortunate event with the child, So whilst Jonah is at the hospital at all hours, even when it's really late, probably struggling to sleep on and off, but being there for their child, which is understandable, Max, and then the former wife, the biological mother, also being at the hospital too. Does it create a bit of a separation for Rebecca, who's kind of by herself at the mansion with no one around? I mean, this is the front. It's round the back where it was happening, and we're going to get to those photos afterwards. I just want to create a visual image and impression for anyone watching, the impact it can have on Rebecca, directly what happened to Max, or more so what happened afterwards and leading up to that impending voice message. Because when that call was made from Jonah, who's at the hospital also, I bet Jonah wanted to have like a live call, with girlfriend, because it being a sensitive time, a difficult moment, wanting to get the message across clearly and to share it with someone, a loved one, as in an update. But for Rebecca to listen to the voice message almost immediately after the call made, it implies that Rebecca was maybe struggling to sleep, or she was woken up by the call, but she chose not to answer it. She wasn't, in the mood, in the right mind space to be doing a live call in the moment. It can be quite overwhelming, whether it be by normally an unfamiliar number, but it can also be by a familiar face and caller. It can spike the anxiety and anxiousness within, especially when you're anticipating a possible update. Even if you weren't expecting a call, when you do finally get one and it's from someone who's not in the bed where they should be in the moment, something must be up. When it's that early in the day, the morning, past midnight, just about approaching the morning of the 13th or so, it does make you wonder what's really going on. For Rebecca, almost 1 a.m. That realization of, well, this must be a serious call for it to be happening so early. People should be asleep, people should be resting. But when something is so important, good news or normally bad news, it will come at any given time. And with Rebecca struggling herself maybe, or subconsciously, and associating that call with that time, with that familiar face and number, it must be bad news. Does Rebecca want to face the music? Probably not. Does she want to hear her boyfriend hurt or distraught? Probably not. If in that moment there's a slight feeling of self-blame and guilt, that overwhelming, impending feeling of, what have I done? Neglecting Max, what impact has it done on this whole family, this relationship, the boyfriend? I don't want to hear about it getting worse or how people feel and being sad because it's too much for myself. So as a defense mechanism, maybe Rebecca chose to ignore it, pretend like it's not there, pretend it didn't happen, because by pretending it's not real. And if it's not real, there's nothing to stress about. However, due to the nature, the personality, the behavior that she has as a person, there's still that curiosity, as in wondering what could have been. That curiosity takes over, that orbiting, wanting to be like a spectator in the moment, to still listen in on the latest news without facing it live or direct, to avoid any consequences or any triggers in some way to cause an emotional overwhelm. So, when referring back to this, as you see on screen, called from the hospital, giving an update, Rebecca did not answer, hence why it left to a voicemail. I mean, it's possible that Rebecca could have had her phone turned off, or she may have had it by the side of her. And Jonah's trying to call and she's just not picking up, so all you can do is leave a voicemail. It can be hard from both sides, both people. Jonah may desperately want to reach out to his girlfriend to share the news, but also share the struggles and the pain and just to try and confide within her. But then Rebecca is struggling on the other side, knowing what the other person's trying to do, trying to get through, trying to communicate, but Rebecca just isn't ready for it in the moment. And the more times calls come through at unusual times, or there's a repetition behind it, it can get overwhelming. But because Rebecca, and in general when a person loves someone, they may find another way around it, as in trying to contact back or just to listen in anonymously, silently. I don't think it really says when a person has listened to someone's voicemail, at least from the person that sent it in the first place. They're not going to be told about it. And especially with technology back then, I don't think Jonah would know. So it allows Rebecca the peace of mind to get the closure, but it gives her the choice and the timing on her terms when she listens to it. So it reduces the anxiousness, it puts her back in control of the moment emotionally, and it cuts ties with possible consequences for if you had to answer to someone you love live, like an interrogation. That gets removed, a little bit more peace. However, considering that she pretty much listened to it shortly after it was received, clearly shows that it was on her mind and it was high priority to be listening to it. She may have been inside of that house staring at that phone screen, wondering if anyone was going to answer, call, reach out to her. And after that call came through, seeing it on screen with a phone number, with a name attached to it, the impact that can have, it can create nervousness, it can create happiness, it can create sadness. It's that unknown of what's on the other end of the call, what's the message going to be. And maybe for Rebecca, she kind of knew that it was bad news and that's why she was reluctant in answering, but still wanted to know the truth. So upon listening to that voice message very quickly, and it being 2 minutes, listening for 2 minutes long, that sounds like long enough for Rebecca to process, to listen in to what Jonah has to say. If it was an actual call, would it have lasted 2 minutes or much longer? maybe longer. When it's from the hospital, I'm guessing it's Jonah's phone that was used, so there may not be a limit as to how long one would be calling for, like with a phone service in a different place, business, or a public phone, one of those boxes. You only got a certain amount of time. But, Rebecca, the phone records show she dialed the voicemail. Right, yeah, I think it's like that standard most of the time. Listened for 2 minutes, but does that mean to say that the actual voice message was actually 2 minutes long? Possibly. Most voicemails tend to be very short, a few seconds, 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds. If it's something where an emotion has to be put across, a bit of context needs to be provided, it can go on longer. I think a voicemail can last up to 5 to 7 minutes long. So for at least Rebecca to listen to it for 2 minutes, whether that's the full length or not, it shows that there was a bit more depth to it, an explanation behind it, right? And even if it was longer than that, it would imply that Rebecca had enough emotional strength to try and listen to the details. Maybe, just maybe, that when it got too much, she had to cut the call. She had to cut listening to that voicemail because it got all too much. Putting herself in the shoes of Max, or putting herself in the shoes of the father, Jonah, at the hospital, imagining what it's like from other sides, taking on board other people's feelings. That's possibly what Rebecca did in the moment. And with that empathy and those perspectives, it can fill up the mind needing to disconnect or disassociate in the moment. It says here that approximately 12:52, the voicemail was deleted immediately after she listened to it. After she listened to it would imply that she listened to the whole thing. Right, so she listened to it all, but she did not replay it to process. She listened and then deleted. Why is there a need to delete it? Because it's a painful memory. It could act as a trigger, a sad memory, if it was left on the phone accidentally. I do understand that. That has happened in life. A person may have kept or held on to a voice message mail because they forgot to delete it. Then something bad had happened, and then they heard that voice play again in the future, and maybe it's by someone that's no longer around. That can be haunting. So maybe Rebecca thought, out of self-preservation, get rid of it now, because if the conditions are going to get worse for Max, don't want to be reminded of this live, because it would bring it all back in the moment. It's kind of like a secondary traumatic event, depending on how impactful it was on Rebecca to begin with. For Rebecca, it was said that she didn't seem to be too bothered by it. She didn't blame herself much at all. That's what the autopsy stated. So was she strong? Was she strong, independent-minded, lone wolf mentality of not fazed, not bothered? Or is that just a hard exterior and a mask to survive in this world? Because deep down there's a more sensitive side behind her, which she had the inability to show, or there wasn't the right time. Just be on the lookout, because I do have a video coming another time if you'd like to see it. Let me know in the live chat. Let me know your reactions if you would like to see a follow-up video where we take a look at a deeper look into Rebecca's phone, what was found on it, her emotions at the time, and even her emotions and behaviour at the dinner with Adam and Jonah when they went out the night before her death, the 12th of July. So you let me know, because we do need to add on to that. But how it's worded here, it seems like Rebecca did listen to it completely, so she kind of processed it, but maybe wanted to get rid of it at the same time because it was a bit of a painful reminder as to what's already happened and where it's led up to. The mystery, though, investigators never recovered the audio, so they had to rely on Jonah's memory of what he said to piece together its distressing nature, the memory of it. So we don't have a transcript. No transcript. The audio was deleted before it could be recovered. However, Jonah Shacknai testified that his message informed her of Max's grave condition, contents involving He stated he told her Max was brain dead, life support, and his death was likely inevitable. The length records from AT&T confirmed the call was approximately 2 minutes long, meaning that Rebecca listened to the full piece. So she was willing to do that at least. It is important to note as well that before that voicemail, which was 12:50 a.m. 0050, earlier on, back into the night before past midnight, which would have been the 12th, the night as in when Rebecca and Adam had got back to the mansion and then parted ways. Adam going to the guest house around the back, Rebecca staying inside of the house, whilst for Adam, the last time we saw Rebecca was at about 2000 hours. It was an hour later, or an hour and 30 minutes later, when the sister, I believe called Mary, the 14-year-old that did visit the place, Speckles Mansion, days before, with Rebecca hanging out at the time of Max's accident, when Mary was sent back to where she was living at the time, and Rebecca gave her a lift to the airport. Well, when it came to the night onwards, and the 12th, a call was made and they had a conversation. It seemed quite light and positive between Mary, the sister, and Rebecca, just talking about the future as well, plans to hang out with family and do more. So there was hope. It was looking beyond her own feelings and that day and onwards, planning ahead, meaning there was a future, there was still hope, there was things to do. It wasn't to be cut short. But that conversation with a form of hope was before the voicemail. So things can quickly change. Even when it feels like everything is planned and sorted, there's a method behind it, there's a strategy, it can all be turned up, chewed out when something unexpected, news, a change, an emergence of someone, the disappearance of another, and so on. Mentioned that within that call at about 21:30 at night, Rebecca had said to her sister that she was going to get a shower before going to bed. Now, that could be the case and remain clean before the voicemail. It could be possible that Rebecca had had a wash, got into bed, wearing pajamas or whatever, or just like a gown around her, trying to sleep but also struggling, looking to her side, knowing no one's there, the bed is cold. So it creates emotional, physical distance from the person she wants to be close to. Suggested that she was intending on waking up early in the morning to head on down to the hospital to check on in and see how things are there for Max, the boyfriend Jonah, and so on. But never got that far because of how she ended up the way she did, supposedly at 6:48 in the morning or so. I think it was 6:30 when Adam had woken up in the morning time. But it's like that time frame period of 21:30 at night PM when she was last seen or heard of on call, and then the next time when seen post-death at about 6:30, 6:48. Quite a few hours in between what went down. Well, 11:30 PM, there was a witness that heard noises, screaming, and we'll take a look at that later. It was supposedly debunked, though. I've added that in too. But it's trying to understand that voicemail. Did it tip her over the edge? Did it catch her off guard? Did it have a sudden change on her mindset in the moment? Look, this is the thing. If Rebecca was found over the balcony just with the material around her, and that was it, if her hands and feet weren't bound, if she wasn't gagged, and if the knots weren't as technical as they were, then you could say it's more done by her. But in a situation, it seems unlikely that she would go to that stretch. I mean, yeah, you can say a contradiction, but if there was noise and stuff from what a witness nearby heard, how could it link to her death if her death involved being gagged? Unless one thing happened before the other. But different ways of looking at it. You say it's really deep, this, and you can go down many different pathways of understanding it. But I think the voice mail message was a turning point in what was going to happen to Rebecca Zahau next. Because you think about this, if Rebecca, despite everything that was going on and the uncertainty in the background before the voicemail, she was being hopeful with her sister, having plans ahead for the future, maybe to get away from it all, spend time with family and away from what's currently going on. Who knows? Painful memory, painful reminder of the place that she's living in, needs to get away from it. Jonah's family or former connections, there's any underlying toxicity there, trying to get away from all that, just be with Rebecca's family and reconnect in some way. There might have an emotional urgency in the moment, masked by a level of positivity, maybe. Kind of not ignorant in that sense, but not alert and aware of the true depth of what's going on with Max and his condition getting worse in hospital before the voice message. So that impending doom and worry wasn't there in that moment. Inquiring about getting a wash, which is probably what she would normally do. A positive routine, looking after herself, staying clean, freshening up, feeling better about themselves, in their skin and around, to then get in bed and then just relax, or at least try to. Some of it could have been a coping strategy to compensate for the silence that's going on and what's happening. I mean, for Adam to retreat to the guest house and Rebecca to stay in the main building shows, at least from Rebecca's point of view, even during that time, there is a strong loyalty to Jonah. It wasn't a moment of weakness where it seems as if Rebecca falls for Adam or anything like that. There was no mention of that at this moment in time. But whilst Rebecca has done a wash, cleaned up supposedly, in bed, and then when it gets to 12:50 p.m, when it goes into the morning, the 13th, and then the voice message, or just before that, the phone call, and Rebecca decides not to answer it, could be quite telling as in how she was feeling in that moment. Maybe she was hoping there would be no phone calls or any more updates. No more updates would at least imply that it hasn't got any worse. It also suggests that there's no sign of improvement, but it keeps like a baseline. Sometimes people during a storm, an internal storm, or an external form of chaos just wants peace and silence. Sometimes people want the bare minimum of a baseline where it might be quiet, but quiet as in not so much actual sound, but quietness in movement. No movement whatsoever. That can come across as a neutral. It's not positive, it's not negative, but it's something stable. It's something that maybe the person can connect with better. For Rebecca to go to the hospital the next day, more refreshed, after a long night, regain the strength mentally and physically to put on a strong, united front, because it was mentioned in the call, I believe, that Rebecca said to her sister, I have to be strong for Jonah. So in that moment, Rebecca had to be Jonah's rock, or she was planning on doing that the next morning. But that presence of being an emotional support and rock and anchor to someone may have been crushed or taken away the moment she got that call from Jonah when in bed. What she had planned out and in place as a level of gaining back control and stability and just a form of routine and organisation, it was all stripped. When the plans change, when something unexpected happens, catches you off guard. When it's at a time of when you're in bed, your sanctuary can be a vulnerable place. When you're trying to settle down after having a wash and you should be at peace and relaxation, if you can't even get that when it's that time of the day, early hours of the morning, past midnight, you're in bed, you're supposed to associate that with settling down, or you should be asleep by now, wait until the next day to either get on with task, work, or living another day full of fun or exploring, whatever it is. But for Rebecca, who had it in place, had it in plan, have a wash, go to bed, wake up the next morning, be strong for Jonah, as she said, go out early to the hospital, support him, check in on Max, didn't get the opportunity to do any of that because the news came to her. And sometimes when other people do things when you were supposed to do it, sometimes it can feel like a power dynamic change, a power shift, like power being taken away. You got certain responsibilities, or you put yourself in positions and roles of things that you need to do to maintain order and structure, especially at times of uncertainty and when things are tough and difficult. When someone makes it easier or tries stepping on in to give updates, even though that's done as a means of care to let the other person know so they're not suffering in silence and they're not twiddling their thumbs, held in limbo, so they get the closure that they deserve in a way for what they've gone through as well, it can be counterproductive for the one who's got already in place and in plan, this is what I'm going to do, and at this time. For Rebecca to say the next morning, like 6 in the morning onwards, to go down to the hospital, to get some sleep in the moment, already having it in plan, in place, as in what she's going to do, taking the driver's seat, a key pivotal role within that relationship, and so on. Just like how Rebecca did days before, when giving people rides and lifts back and forth. Oh, it's no trouble. Oh, it's no bother. She's doing it maybe to stay busy, to stay distracted. Maybe she's doing it subconsciously because either she feels responsible for it all subconsciously. Maybe she's doing it as a distraction. Maybe she's doing it because it feels like she can't just sit around, do nothing. Feels like she isn't doing enough, even if she already is. By giving that CPR to Max, that's good enough. Shows that she cared. It shows that she tried. But sometimes with someone in that position, firsthand, they may feel like, no, not enough. Got to do more. Have to do more. And even when they're praised or they're acknowledged or valued, they may still put themselves down. It goes on a deeper level, but I'm just thinking that Rebecca had it in place, what she was going to do, where she was going to go, pick people up from airports, drop people off at the hospitals, back and forth like a taxi service. Regardless of the cost, regardless of the distance, Rebecca was willing to do it because she wanted to, maybe because she needed to, and she was able to. She had a level of control there. She had a level of routine and order to maintain it, and a responsibility. Whether that's making up because she feels like she has to please people, she has to diffuse the situation, or she's just doing it because she cares and she might as well because she's able, she's got the schedule, she might have the flexibility, many different reasons. But then when it comes to that early morning voice message and call, Jonah giving her an update to say, hey, this is what the situation is. Maybe Rebecca was hoping nothing but silence until the next day so she can wake up and then deal with it. Brand new day, fresh face, more energy. But having to deal with it when one should be asleep, even if it's going into the next morning, past midnight, you should be asleep or trying to rest. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. Maybe she was woken up by that call, but she listened to it anyway. She made the choice to listen to that. But then again, once it's already happened, once it's got the ball rolling, the ball's in her court to respond. It may not be expected for her to reply back. Maybe Jonah wasn't expecting a call back or a direct action immediately. If she was asleep, she would be asleep. If her phone's turned off, it wouldn't go through. If the phone was turned on, but she was in a deep sleep, she probably wouldn't know about it. You got Adam, who's in the guest house, that supposedly takes sleeping pills, that could have been knocked out. If he got a call, he wouldn't know. Supposedly the voice message mail didn't go to Adam, it only went to Rebecca. So that's why I'm thinking, did Jonah specifically contact Rebecca because it was such a sensitive topic and personal that he wanted to share it with someone who is closer to emotionally, and then maybe hoped that Rebecca could pass that message, voicemail, onto Adam through the courtyard? Is that what spiraled out and caused her death? As a means of foul play, as a means of darkness, an aggressive response from Adam as a suggestion only. That's the other end of the spectrum. If it hadn't even got to that, and it was while she was in the bedroom and heard about the news, if Adam, depending on when he was last communicated, and then the next time he came across Rebecca, what did Rebecca do from 0050? Let's round it up. just round it up to be easy. What did Rebecca do at 1 in the morning up to 6:30? Quite a few hours passing by. We don't know the exact time of death. Only the time of death given as in when she was found. And I don't think that is enough in detail. So it could have been earlier, but I think the autopsy had worded it as she had died the night before, as in the 12th. But no, it's the 13th. Even when it's 0050, it's the 13th. When it's 1 in the morning, it's the 13th. And she was alive around that time. So anything beyond that would be on the 13th, not the night before. So I don't know why the autopsy has done that. It doesn't make much sense unless they just base it on when she was last seen or heard alive. But it does proof, which appears to be that she listened to it, she herself, and that was on the 13th. She was still alive by that point. But inside, emotionally, how was she feeling? If she was hoping for no news, no updates, so she could rest, relax, and prepare herself, good or bad, for the next day, that was taken off the table. She had to sit there and deal with it. Late night, tired, needing sleep, needing rest, but then hearing that news, what are you supposed to do with it in that moment and onwards? You want to rush to the hospital, but it's too early in the day. You still need your sleep. You need to get rest, but how can you sleep when dealing with it? Then processing that voicemail as well. The tone of Jonah's voice. He may have sounded upset on the call, having to deal with that. It's not just one area which can take an emotional toll and impact on Rebecca. Dealing with Max, whilst Rebecca isn't the biological mother to Max, Rebecca is stepmother, so there's still an emotional connection there. Feeling responsible or not, or feeling more responsible now with the condition of Max, feeling they could have done more, even if they couldn't really. So that kicks in those feelings and blame and worry and sadness. But then when there's someone that you love, close to or with, friendship or relationship, and you hear or know that they're upset, then it can make them themselves upset. And it might add further distress knowing that one thing that links to another involves them as the common denominator, or at least that's how they feel, that the past or what's previously happened is linking on to what's currently going on. Current sadness within someone that you look up to or like links back to your involvement with Max's accident, but it's a part of one timeline and it may seem linear, going in a certain direction which isn't positive or getting better, but you got to always link back to the origins, as in Rebecca was in the house doing one thing, Max was elsewhere doing another thing. Can't be watching over 24/7, and the age that Max was, 6 years, he should be okay in the house by himself, on and off, I guess. As for the scooter being upstairs, why would it be? But even if there wasn't a scooter about, Max could have fallen down the stairs or been playing near to the banister where it goes down. He could have still fallen over regardless. So there's only so much that Rebecca could have done. Just like with the sister, whatever the sister was doing, obviously much younger, shouldn't have to be caring for Max, but looking out for one another and bonds and closeness, she was doing other stuff herself. So can't be watching people 24/7, even if you're in the same building. It's not always possible. But that emotional toll that it can take on the person and people around, it can get a lot. So when listening to that voicemail message, probably had a bit of an impact on Rebecca. I don't think she would have been cold-faced. I think she would have reacted in some way. Did she cry? Did she break down? Not too sure about that. But it's what did she do with that voicemail next? Considering that it said she deleted it, she wouldn't have been able to go to Adam in the guest house courtyard area and play the message directly to Adam about it. But she could at least pass the message on verbally. That's if she even got to that point. If she didn't, and it was linked back to the self-inflicted part, it would imply that round it up to 1 in the morning on the 13th, she was possibly sat there or she got up. She may have been pacing up and down the dark room, hands on her head, pulling through her hair, thinking, what have I done? Or what's this going to mean next for me? What will this mean for our relationship? How will Jonah think of me? Will he think any less of me now? Because that's the thing. There can be a form of delayed guilt, a form of delayed external blame, putting herself in the shoes of the other person, as in, what are they going to think of me now? Previous, they may have said, don't worry, it's fine, it's an accident, you can't be there all the time, you don't need to worry, it's okay. And they mean that. But then when things get worse, sometimes they can then do the blame game and put the blame on the person that they excused to begin with. It's unfortunate. It's like leading someone into a false sense of security. Something bad happens, big or small. You reassure them it's okay, you don't need to worry, it's all fine, everything's going to be okay. You reassure that person, you bring about a level of safety, security, reassurance, and it makes them calm. It might not make them happy, but it makes them feel valued and appreciated and loved. It eases them just a little bit. That person may mean it as well. May. But then when the news gets worse and the outcome is, let's say, fatal, they could suddenly snap or change and say, you're to blame for this. I don't like you. You've caused all this. And it's difficult because they're acting out in the moment because it's the heat of the moment. It's a tense emotional time for them. They're dealing with a form of grief, an instant backlash, taking it out on the wrong people, a form of displacement, placing their aggression, frustration on the person that they were trying to protect to begin with. The one on the receiving end of it all that was excused and now blamed, that confuses their mind, as in they felt maybe bad to begin with, but they were promised and said it's fine. So they were calmed, settled, in a vulnerable place where they look up to someone for answers or reassurance. They get it, they feel a little bit better. They're in a bit of a bubble, a shield. And then as soon as that person changes their tune, which is understandable under those circumstances, but takes it out on the person that they may love the most, that feeling of betrayal, whether that be a traumatic event, and then this emergence of a form of betrayal post-event. It can be quite unsettling and shattering in a way, because there is a level of trust in a high, intense emotional situation, put in a place in a protective bubble. And the person that put you in a protective bubble is the same person that pops it shortly afterwards. So you thought you found a safe space, you thought you landed on a safety net, and suddenly it's cut beneath you and then you drop. It's that drop sinking feeling, you know? And whether that actually happened, that exchange of conversation, maybe it didn't, but was it going through Rebecca's mind? You know, when looking at some of the stuff online as for research, it was suggesting that there may have been tension, there may have been some relationship troubles in the past and conflict. If there was anything dark, maybe Rebecca didn't want a repeat or for it to get worse. So for Rebecca to be with Jonah and Jonah to be where he's at, and with Jonah being at the hospital with the biological mother and his former wife or girlfriend, she could even be whispering stuff in Jonah's ear saying, wow, have you seen what's happened? Who knows, the toxicity could take over, the emotional labour and intensity in the moment can take over, and whilst Rebecca is alone at the mansion, technically, dealing with that voicemail message by herself with no one around to seek comfort, to reach out to, and maybe that emotional overwhelm where Rebecca self-isolates in the moment. You know, the way I'm wording it all sounds like, oh, she's on the verge of completely breaking and collapsing, but it doesn't have to mean that she did what she did to herself to end up over the balcony. You can get a combination where a person can show signs and symptoms of distress, vulnerability, and a crisis moment, but they may not actually act out on it. More so, they may reach out to someone in the moment who's present, but that someone may be a familiar face, it may not. It could be a safe person, it could be a dangerous person, but the important thing is Rebecca, dealing with an emotional time like that, could be in an emotional, vulnerable state, meaning anyone she reaches out to, she's not quite herself. She's not as sharp, she's not as snappy, her reflexes aren't quite the same. Being vulnerable to other people, bad people, for example, could see it as a weakness. It's not a weakness, but to them it is. So they can exploit, they can take over, they can take advantage. So, that could link onto what the family was suggesting as in a sexual type of thing, form of intimacy forced upon her. She was sad, she was upset, and someone thought that they could take advantage of that and try and get all touchy with her, and she rejected it. And then things went dark, very bad. Or, if it wasn't intimacy, it could be that Rebecca reached out to Adam, almost collapsing and telling him the news. All Rebecca may have wanted was to fall and be caught in someone's hands, preferably a familiar face, to not be dropped, to not be let go. Whether she's dealt with hard times previously in relationships, even with Jonah or someone else, that in that moment needs a form of security and safety, and that reassurance that she may have been promised previously before that bubble was popped and she dropped. Not wanting to drop or collapse again, trying to regain her breath, metaphorically as a symbolism, putting her trust or hope into Adam, maybe to the guest house. I think it said her feet were dirty. If that's one of the only things that were dirty, maybe that's because she was walking from one place to another, as in the courtyard. And before we jump onto that, as in what it could have linked onto and how dark it could have got, we probably should head back to the notes to continue with the backstory on the sideline. From Adam's account, it was said that Adam told investigators he took a sleeping pill, was asleep by 8 p.m. in the guest house. That's in regard to the 12th, not the 13th, by 8 p.m. and then woke up at around 6:30 in the morning. Now, it can work different for people and their internal body clock. If Adam is mentally, psychologically, physically healthy, maybe a sleeping pill is effective enough for it to do its job. But if Adam was taking sleeping pills because of dealing with issues, underlying ones or ones we've not, found out about, let's put it that way, they may be necessarily needed for sure, but they don't always work. People can take stuff to help them sleep to ease their body, their mind. Is it cortisol levels within the serotonin? And certain cortisol levels, I believe it is, when they're quite high or at their highest peak, can be around 3 in the morning. Maybe sometimes 2 in the morning, but normally around 3 in the morning when a person can wake up unexpectedly and have trouble in going back to sleep. Some could say it links back to other issues underlying, but it just goes to show that when it comes to taking tablets before going to sleep, they may not always be effective or strong enough. And the levels within the body, the brain, the mind can be, at a peak around 3 a.m, meaning you can wake up and you try going back to sleep after that, it can be a difficulty. Whilst here, we don't know whether it's successful or not. You could just say, well, I take sleeping pill and asleep by 8. Yeah, you can pass out, you can drop off, you can be knocked out quite quick or powerfully, but it may not keep you asleep for a long period or for long enough. Meaning, if there was any chance or a window where he could have woken up for any particular reason, Rebecca could have come across Adam. Rebecca may have even woken up Adam. Take that in mind. The discovery that Adam claimed he did not see or speak to Rebecca then, again until he found her body at 6:45 a.m. the following morning and called emergency services. It was around 6:40, 6:30. That's what he claims. Could be the truth, or maybe he's wording it that way to back up the whole sleeping pill thing. What if Rebecca did try waking Adam up or actually told him about it? As for that voicemail sent directly to Rebecca, Rebecca deleted it, maybe because it was too painful to listen to again. She's already processed it in her mind. It's already imprinted word for word, and even the tone in her mind, going over it over and over again in her head. And maybe to try and escape that noise, she decided to seek comfort in Adam and tell him about the news, unaware of how he could react. You never know. But in regard to the night, the 12th going into the 13th, as in 12:50 p.m, it says a scream was reported. A neighbour later reported hearing a woman scream for help on the night Rebecca died. Now, Rebecca didn't die the night because she was still alive by the morning, right, at 12:50 p.m. Anyway, but it would contradict the idea of a death because of the voicemail. Yes, because the voicemail was after. And as well, if it was self-inflicted, because she was gagged, would she be even making any noise regardless of the time? That's what you got to take in mind. The witness account, an individual known as Marcia Alexander, was a neighbour living 2 doors down, originally told investigators she heard a woman's voice scream, "Help me, help me, help me," 3 times around 11:30 p.m. Around 11:30 p.m, what was Rebecca doing? Was she asleep or not? Is it possible that, another way of looking at it, that help me may have not been linked with her death, but could it have been linked with Rebecca having a night terror, a bad dream, shouting to the top of her lungs? I mean, if that really was her, that would have been inside of the house. And would a neighbour a few doors down, would they have heard it from that distance? Especially when it's already inside in a compact room with the doors closed, you probably wouldn't hear it. Maybe Adam could hear a faint sound, but that would be it. Unless Rebecca at 11:30 was outside, she couldn't sleep or she was having trouble trying to stay busy, distract herself, who knows. But if it's, a female voice, a woman screaming, and with what happened to Rebecca shortly after, you could link it in some way. Initial certainty, Alexander was described by the family's attorney as very adamant that the voice was a young woman and that it came from the direction of the mansion. The timing, this reported scream occurred over an hour before Rebecca supposedly listened to the triggering voicemail at 12:50. Notice how it says triggering. So it could lead to an emotional reaction by Rebecca nevertheless onwards. In addition, what you've got there is from 2011 September, Spreckles Mansion, and 2 doors down, depending which direction we're looking at, I'm guessing not that White House there, but the one beyond it. Probably that roof that you see over the palms, the trees. That one back there, the more brownish one. That might have been where Alexander was at, but at 11:30 p.m, what was she doing? She must have been outside of the house, either in the garden or the front area near the porch, to hear that noise and it travelling. Now, for Marcia Alexander to say it sounded like a woman, and maybe with references to Rebecca or reaching out to police for that, is because at the time when you hear it, you may think of it in a bad way. But if you didn't know about Rebecca or her situation in the moment, you wouldn't link it. But then when you hear about her death afterwards, even if it's time apart, you might link one with the other and think, oh, maybe it does link, and you can piece it together. But in the moment, you're not going to be thinking. Over that way anyway, with all the trees and vegetation, it'd be a blind spot to looking up this way. I know some of it would have changed a little bit, like with that barrier, that fencing, but that's obviously because of the death, and it was going under any work at the time by then. You can get a little bit further back in time, but I just wanted to use this one for the camera angle, the lighting and whatnot. Little balcony area there, but it's round the back, the courtyard, which we can't see on here, but you can on Google Earth imagery. The cars being lined up, noise could travel down. What's really going on? The investigators' rebuttal. San Diego's Sheriff's Department eventually discounted the testimony as unreliable for two main reasons. Source location. Detectives testified that the scream actually came from an area northwest of the property towards the beach rather than from the balcony where Zahau was found. Well, she wasn't found on the balcony, she was found over the balcony. Changing statements. According to lead detectives, the witness later clarified her statement, admitting there were 5 to 6 teenagers or children talking and playing near the sidewalk outside her house that same night. Outside of her house, just a coincidence of that timing, I guess, but still a bit creepy in a way. A bit of an unsettling feeling. Official conclusion, authorities concluded the witness had likely mistaken the sounds of these children playing for a woman's cry for help. But a woman's cry for help with the children playing on that, if they saw her in the window. I mean, when you're looking straight down, you got the mansion on the right just there, the sidewalk just there, and across on the left-hand side you got a nice vast beach area over here. I mean, as for the view and just the general area, looks really good. It looks calming, and when you've got a calming, relaxing area associated with a tragedy like Rebecca, it can taint the image of the place and add a dark, looming atmosphere on what went so wrong. What happened in this area for it to appear quite appealing and peaceful and colourful at this moment, at least, to then be overshadowed by what happened with Rebecca. How could it go so wrong in an area like this? Shouldn't it be safe? And if it's somewhat wealthy, then there should be better security and not as many dangerous people about. But dangerous people can come in different shapes, forms and ways, of course. So round this area, this sidewalk, whether it be on the sidewalk beside the house or on the opposite side, the sidewalk here near the beach, kids walking about at 11:30 p.m. Now, were these kids locals? Probably. Did they live nearby? Maybe. What age were they to be hanging out at 11:30? When they say kids, that could mean teenagers, older teenagers, 16, 18, 19, who knows. But separate people. Just makes me think that if they were walking by the sidewalk, is it possible that when looking through one of these windows, Rebecca was up against the glass, hand on the window, blood on her, screaming, knocking on the glass, and it alerted or terrified the kids walking by? Who's that crazy person in the window? What's she looking at? Help me. Who knows? Because trying to understand the movements, it's clear that Rebecca was on the move about at some point before her death, I guess, based on certain items that were found in a bedroom which would be associated in other rooms of the house, even on the ground floor, like the kitchen knives and the kitchen trash bag, maybe the paintbrushes as well. Did Rebecca gather all them up from all around the house just to bring them to her bedroom of all places? Why would she choose, if it was self-inflicted, why would she choose her bedroom to do it? Of all the other rooms, is it because that was the only one with the balcony? I mean, well, it's kind of like a balcony there, isn't there? Or a lower tier top roofing. Could have gone over it and dropped that way, but strange. It's very strange. And this is where we get onto the kind of like murder aspect. So visually looking at it, I think it's probably the only balcony that there was, and it was only a little one where I've got it roughly highlighted in the circle. That top roof in there, which you could stand on, it's got an overhanging patio roof down here, so you couldn't fall over and hang that way, and by the side would be hard to as well, because then you'd be on show from the front area, the front lawn. You can see the sidewalk, the pathway leading up to the property, just where those people are. And the main house there, guest house down here, where Adam was at, in a separate building. Probably, well, doors shut, maybe the windows shut as well, so noise wouldn't have travelled. With a sleeping pill as well, wouldn't have picked up on it. However, before all of that, is it possible that Rebecca got the voice message, listened to it, despite being hard to listen to, deleted it because it was too emotionally taxing, and instead of playing that voice message to Adam, because Adam deserved to know at the end of the day. Jonah could and should have told Adam in the moment, but maybe it was too hard. It was easier just reaching out to one person who's on site who could then pass it on to the other that's nearby. And Jonah trusted Rebecca more, maybe. Jonah being boyfriend, girlfriend, Rebecca, closer connection to be able to try and share that sensitive news, maybe. And hoping that Rebecca would be the sensitive one, or the person who knows how to deal with the situation where she has to be brave, or she has to be strong, or that's how she always has had to be. Just like how it was mentioned the night before about being strong for Jonah. There's different dynamics in the relationships, trying to understand how was it in this case. It's not always 50-50. It's not always guaranteed as to whose role or who's going to step up in the moment. It can be different, but what's ultimately going on? Did Rebecca try to tell Adam? As in, she came downstairs. Okay. Do we actually find the stairs? Yes. She came down the stairs, went round the back to exit into the courtyard down here, dropping on down, walking down the pathway, for example, which leads to the guest house. Facing the guest house, as you see this way, knocking on the door, banging on the door, who knows, startling or waking up Adam, and Adam's like, what's the news? What's the deal? What's going on? And Rebecca's crying and upset. Does Adam lead her into the guest house room and says, hey, take a seat down, sit down for a moment? Did anything escalate from there? Was it abrupt, as in Rebecca spilled the news about Max's condition worsening and not a good outcome, and possible organ donation too, and Adam loses it in the moment without really thinking? Whether that be side effects from any medication, the sleeping pill, or outright frustration here at the moment, taking it out on Rebecca, feeling that she's to blame, and Rebecca endures an unpleasant form of treatment. But that must lead back to the house, maybe. I mean, there's always that weird cross connection of, like I said earlier, you could get someone who's vulnerable, who shows certain symptoms and signs of struggling, and that could be associated with what was to happen next, but it may not always come to that. She may just need someone, but then that someone takes advantage, which they finish her off, and then it makes it look like that she did it to herself originally because of how distraught she was, but it's not always that way. Other times, there is another one where a person could have been upset, saddened, confided into someone, and that someone took advantage or broke that trust, that betrayal, crossed the line. They felt even worse than what they did before and finished themselves off. But it doesn't really explain being bound, tied up, and the gagging. That bit just seems a bit too far and extreme. Normally, when a person does it to themselves, it's quite simple, as in they do what they do around the neck area and then go from there. They're not going to go to all great lengths and details in tying this and tying that and operating it like some kind of military operation. No. And then painting stuff on the doors as well in between. The timing of it all. I mean, you could say, was the painting on the door before or after her death? Was the painting on the door before or after the voicemail? It would be after the voicemail, but would it be before the death? If it was anything to do with reaching out to Adam, did Rebecca paint it first? I mean, if any of that did happen, then Adam should have seen Rebecca with paint on before anything came about or developed. I'm just wondering, did anything go on inside that guest house? Did Adam try making a move on her when she was upset, vulnerable, didn't know what to do, and she rejected him, and Adam took that the wrong way on top of the news of Max? So it was like two reasons to hate her. And did anything actually happen in that room, in the guest house? Maybe not. Maybe she tried getting away. Maybe she escaped back to the main house. But did he chase her down? Did he follow her? And that chasing and that stress, Did it bring on her period? And that's why she was bleeding out. But more so inside the house, not outside. Just make you think. And how did it explain the dirty feet? Could be the balcony. The dirty feet could be from just walking outside to get to the guest house. If she's not quite in the right frame of mind and she's struggling, she might not put on footwear. She might not put on shoes or socks. If she was in bed, asleep, or trying to sleep, she's probably got no socks on. Gets the voicemail, hears it, doesn't know what to do, panicking, worrying, decides to tell Adam about it, to share the news so he's not left in the dark, but just not in the headspace to be putting shoes on, to be putting a dressing gown or a coat on when it's cold outside or a bit cool. It's in like autopilot mode, going from one place to another, and then maybe not out of being drunk, but metaphorically sobers up when Adam reacts badly, and it brings on another form, a different form of panic or stress, leading to Rebecca running from the guest house up the pathway into the main house. Would you have had time to lock the doors though? I mean, there's probably quite a few different access points to the house, so maybe there weren't. Getting in. It is also possible that maybe nothing did happen in the guest house. It's just because the guest house did have female underwear in one of the bins and other clothing dumped on the floor. It said the DNA did not match Rebecca or Adam, but then again, that clothing was left for some time. So due to the conditions, the temperatures, it could have been lost. Due to any cross-contamination over time, may have interfered with it, the original touch-based DNA. So it's hard to tell. Why else would clothing be left and why would it be dumped on the floor? I mean, look, in fairness, Rebecca was found on the ground down there, right? She was found down there on the grass and she didn't have any clothes. So is it possible that Rebecca's clothes were in the guest house and they were on the floor because Adam may, as a theory, took them off her? She was in a vulnerable place, not quite thinking, or she tried doing something drastic to try and numb the pain or forget about it all, which was a sexual reaction and response which she may have later regretted. That's what I mean. And then that secret, or trying to keep it a secret. I mean, there's other ideas of Rebecca walking in on some other woman in the guest house with Adam, and Adam is supposed to be married, so did Rebecca see something she wasn't supposed to? And then Adam tried silencing her when she made it back to the house to maybe call someone to let them know what's happened, and he threatened her, and it escalated. There is that. But we're here for the voicemail theory. But beside the voicemail being enough to trigger Rebecca, and whether that led directly to her removing herself from the world, or if she tried telling Adam and Adam took it the wrong way and had a go at her when it got to the house area. Let's just head on over to Google Earth for a second. Here we go. So, of course, this does look different now compared to how it did back then. It's been redesigned quite a few times. But what still kind of remains the same is like the back, the guest house area back here. That pretty much still looks the same. But I believe a swimming pool has now been added. It looks as if the balcony has been removed from that side there, and the trees in the corner. No actual, well actually no, it could be a balcony. Maybe the railings, the colour has changed. It looks like there's two lots of possible mini balconies on that side there. A bit of an overhang. Yeah. So I can't flip the image too low down because the height of these buildings kind of collide, unfortunately. But I'm just wondering, we said to go across the courtyard down there into the main house, running around. But would she be the one fetching all the items whilst being chased by Adam, if that was the case? Is it even possible that maybe it wasn't that intense immediately? There wasn't quite a chase. Is it possible that Rebecca woke Adam up with the voicemail and she was upset, and Adam was like, oh, let's go back to the main house and sit down and talk this through and the details of that voice message. And they went back into the main house, whether that be upstairs in the bedroom where Rebecca needed comfort, or if that be in the kitchen, dining, living room area, talking it through, saying, so what happened here, what happened there? And then when the news came about, it was made more clear, did Adam lose it? And it brought on Rebecca's stress and panic, and she moved about. Did she grab a knife out of instinctive reflex? And she was already bleeding from down there. So when she checked with her hand, she had blood on her hand. So then she grabbed a knife for protection. The blood spread onto the handle of the knife, and she was waving that about, saying, stay away from me, Adam. Don't come near me. If there was any sign of threat. Is it possible there's a combination of hypervigilance, hyper-aware, hyper-alert, very defensive, protective of themselves, perceiving Adam as a threat, where it's that clear in the moment or not? But because Adam has experience with boats and tying knots, the sailor ones, and because that's what was found on Rebecca's body, you'd think, but there's at least a coincidence there, maybe more to that. Did at any point Adam overpower, shut down, neutralise Rebecca? Did he throw her over the balcony? Did Adam, like almost, hands around or rope around to, just because of YouTube guidelines, strangle, take her out that way, and then stage it like it was self-inflicted by wrapping more round her and then throwing her over the balcony? But if she was already gone, why would she need to be gagged? Unless she only passed out from losing certain oxygen, consciousness, passed out, and then finished off when going over the balcony. And her feet got dirty again when going onto the balcony area, which may have not been cleaned for a while. And then, did he leave the paint mark, though, on the door? She saved him, can you save her? Is that a direct indirect reference to Jonah? Was it a sarcastic remark? Or did Rebecca leave it herself when talking in third person? And if she did, was that before or after a possible altercation with Adam? It does make you think. I'm kind of vague on how things could have played out inside of the house because we don't have enough directions and evidence to work it out. I mean, it could involve a lot of guessing, and it's not too helpful that most of the key items were in the bedroom. So they're all gathered and collected up in one go and placed there during or before the death. With some items taken up there as a form of self-protection, as she was trying to keep Adam away at arm's length, and he broke that boundary because he was angry, he was frustrated with the news of Max, it getting worse. Is it one of those double binding acts of betrayal? In Rebecca's position, you probably would expect her to be shocked or taken back on top of everything that she's dealing with in the moment, especially alone when her boyfriend isn't there to comfort her because of being elsewhere with high priority, and her feeling physically, emotionally paralysed. That could be a freeze response as well in the moment, not knowing what to do, what to think, where to go. If paired with any betrayal such as a sudden snap or change in behaviour by Adam or even Jonah, or in her mind playing out like that, it could have led to more emotional distress. During times of uncertainty, moments of struggle, you'd hope that those that are around you are able to be consistent emotionally in how they portray themselves, and it's not always possible for them either. But if Adam was calm at first and suddenly became a bit loud or frustrated, maybe what Rebecca really needed wasn't noise, but silence, but company, a balance. It's not guaranteed that she reached out to Adam, but you would think, or you would hope, that if everything was all okay at the time, all on the same page, Rebecca was okay with Adam and vice versa. When she hears the news of the voicemail, she might shut down, she might struggle, but you'd hope she'd be able to reach out to Adam in the moment if she was safe enough. And you think naturally, in a normal circumstance, a person would reach out to whoever else is about on site at the property, a friend, a family member, a family, a part of the family, to let them know too. It's interesting though how Jonah chose Rebecca over Adam. When Adam would have been asleep, Rebecca should have been asleep, and yet Jonah still tried calling Rebecca. So it shows how serious it was It may imply that Jonah knew that Rebecca could be asleep, so it wouldn't be successful, but might as well leave the voice message as soon as possible. So then at least when she wakes up in the morning, it's the first thing that she hears. But sometimes that's the thing. The one thing you don't want to hear, especially over the phone or by pre-done message, is something negative like bad news. If something's going to be talked about and it's difficult or hard, it should be done more so face to face. So it's diffused a little bit, it's controlled and handled a bit better. I mean, separate situation, if there was a disconnect or a breakup with different people, parting ways, and it was just done over a text message and not face to face or even a call, some could find that hard to process. With the news of Max and the possible loss of him, or how it was likely heading, for it to just be done over a message, a voice one, whether Rebecca heard it in the moment, which she did, or if she was to wake up in the morning, it's not what you want to hear or see first thing. You'd probably rather hear it face to face from the horse's mouth than rather over the phone, because then you got to deal with the pain, the distance, the coldness in a way indirectly, and then travelling to the area with already knowing about it, feeling it and processing it. When you get bad news, in the moment you want to collapse or fall in the presence of someone, not by oneself, and for Rebecca that's how it appeared to be. Before all of that, though, I said, bit of a you got like a game talk, prep talk. I've got to be strong for Jonah, got to do this, got to do that. Did Rebecca put herself in a position of high pressure and high performance despite how she may feel? Whether that attributed to her eventual downfall and death, or if it just played a role in her being a little bit more vulnerable, if it played a role in bringing on the stress and her period, bringing it on early because of everything. Was it possible that Rebecca was in a position or place by choice or no choice, or feeling it's just had to be done to put on a mask, a brave face when they were crumbling inside and it was chipping away at her because of the news of Max, unaware of what was to come shortly after? Wanting to be a good partner or a good girlfriend for Jonah, but if they're not quite feeling themselves, if Rebecca isn't quite feeling 100%, but she feels she has to be good for Jonah, she has to be okay for him, for the sake of helping him, who's going through a tough time, because his son, she's not the biological mother, she's still attached, but not the same way. But she could understand it from Jonah's point of view of how much of a toll it takes on him. Any retrospective guilt, responsibility in her mind may feel she owes Jonah her best version, or trying to portray herself in her best way, being good for him, being supportive, being caring, being proactive, helping people from airport to airport, doing all the excess baggage and carrying, because she's trying to prove either to him she's okay, she's trying to prove to herself she's okay, but deep down she isn't. She could be struggling, she could be crumbling under the pressure, and she's trying to hold it together as a final defense mechanism, a survival tactic. But deep down she feels it's just not working, even though she's trying so hard. It shows how loyal they are, it shows how much they care, it shows how strong they are, because at times, sometimes strength doesn't always equal how it feels. At times, how it feels chaotic, messy, difficult, negative, but how it looks on the outside from spectators, strength. With what Rebecca's dealing with and day-to-day stuff and other responsibilities, it shows a level of strength, a level of functionality, but doesn't mean to say everything's all okay and fine on the inside. They're just doing what they have to do or what they feel they need to do. But when there's added pressure to be always on, to show up, to be good for someone, to appear okay when they're not, that adds a mask. It's exhausting, it's tiring. And to be honest, in the moment, maybe for Rebecca, she felt a form of guilt that she wasn't allowed or entitled to break down or to grieve or to cry or anything like that, because maybe she felt because she's not the biological mother, she can't show that same level of emotion as what Jonah may, because Jonah's the father, by blood to Max, and the other woman, the former wife to Jonah, is the biological mother. So maybe Rebecca feels that they're entitled to be sad, to break down and all that, and Rebecca feels like she can't because she's a third wheel. Even though she's in a relationship with Jonah directly, and they should be exclusive, maybe Rebecca felt the past is coming back to what former flames once had, coming together for the sake of a bad event, which is Max, and she feels left out in a way. And she feels like because of the past and them reuniting for Max, she feels left out or not deserving of being a part of it because it's like a third wheel. She has to suffer in silence. The best thing that she can do is appear as if she's still getting on with stuff, maintaining a strong front for the sake of the relationship, to keep it going, maybe worried that it may break or fall apart because of Max's outcome and what's to happen shortly after with the voicemail. Maybe Rebecca felt she owed something like a great debt, which was very hard to pay off, and it led to an emotional overwhelm within and a system shutdown. We don't know her facial expressions, her body language when inside of the house and what she was actually doing, but maybe she was impacted a lot more than what she let on originally. Or maybe just that voicemail was the catalyst and opened up a floodgate of emotions, which she wasn't expecting herself, the timing of it and the delivery. To delete it shows that she was willing to listen, she was curious enough, and it meant something to her, but she just wasn't able to reply back because it was all too much. She heard it, she felt it, she put herself in those shoes and felt it, may have cried and been upset, but couldn't do any more. Paralysed with fear, paralysed, frozen. Would that make her more or less likely to reach out to Adam then? Well, if Adam was to do anything to Rebecca, Adam would have to know about what's happened to Max's condition. And because no voice message mail was sent to Adam, Adam would be in the dark about it. So if Adam had any responsibility with Rebecca, Adam would have had to have been awake, first of all, but also Rebecca would have had to have been close to Adam. And Rebecca would have had to have been the one to deliver the news to Adam. Maybe in the heat of the moment, she rushed to him to tell the news because she didn't know what to do or how to cope, or she felt it was the right thing to do. She may have even suffered greatly, but then put that mask back on and thought, right, put herself back in that responsible role of must tell the news, be the bearer of the bad news, despite how I feel, despite the guilt that I may have. Tell Adam, and unknown to her, he takes it the wrong way and goes after her physically as a theory, an idea. But all I would say is, in my opinion, for Adam to have any involvement in the darkness with Rebecca's death, it would have to mean the voice message towards Rebecca played a pivotal role in bridging the physical distance and gap between the two and the mental knowledge gap. So Rebecca told Adam, Adam found out that way. If Adam had received a voice message independently, he could have been woken up by it. He could have then gone to the house and gone after her that way. But it's been said that Jonah only reached out to Rebecca and that was it. So Adam would have been in the dark. For Adam to be responsible for Rebecca's death before coming across her dead, Rebecca would have had to have told Adam, and it would have had to have been that way round. How likely is Rebecca to reach out to Adam under those circumstances? How she felt. Because if Adam doesn't know and isn't told, by the time he does wake up, he likely would have found her the way he did. Because if Adam was okay with Rebecca that night, and then when going to the guest house, the voice message came after that, that would have been the motivator to maybe trigger one response and feeling from Rebecca, a different response and feeling from Adam. But if it never reached Adam, that trigger wouldn't have been there for him, but it was for Rebecca only. So it's ultimately figuring out, was that voice message a trigger for Rebecca self-inflicting it on herself, or reaching out to Adam for comfort and it backfiring, and then because he finds out, he takes it out on her? That's the way I see it at this moment in time. We can look at it in other ways as well at a different point, but just wanted to give the thoughts there. I hope you found this video somewhat interesting. If you want to hit the thumbs up, like button, share the video, it'd be much appreciated, just to get the awareness out there, because this case doesn't get the same attention as it did in the past. Other channels, creators kind of given up on it. But here I am, trying to make sense, and shout out to those who watch, and of course, those that watch in the background, much appreciated, and so on. My name's Wallach Raf, thanks for watching, see you next time, goodbye, good night for now.